Sorry, I should have asked from the first time you guys invited me out. I was like, is this like kid friendly?
Well, not anymore.
We're going to put an E next to this one.
Thanks for downloading and listening to another episode of the West Box Score. We take a look at sports on the west side of the country, inside and outside of the box score. Here to help me break down some of the latest news going on is my co-host, co-pilot, co-captain, the Bavon, to my Chicharito, Donald Paz. What's up, Donald?
Yo, what up, Alex? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. And we have our special guest back with us once again from the Fox Crate podcast, Sonny Hermano. What's up, Sonny Hermano?
What up, my boys? Happy to be back. Let's do this.
Yeah, man.
We're going to have to start giving you host pay pretty soon.
I know,
such
right?
a reoccurring guest.
Yeah.
The host pay, by the way, is the same as the host pay, $0. It's all, deferred payments. So big sports weekend coming up this weekend. Fingers crossed it actually does happen. The MLS is back. Tournament gets kicked off Wednesday, July 8th, which by the time you're listening to this, you already know the Inter Miami has already won. That's my pick to win that. They're my sleeper pick to win this tournament, by the way, because they're hosting it. Who's your pick to win the tournament, Sonny Hermano?
COVID. That's because by the time you're listening to this, is it possible that the tournament just never happened or maybe barely happened?
The over-under, they get out of the group stage. There's no way they get out of the group stage at this point,
exactly,
right?
And I don't mean to make light of obviously something as serious as this disease, but
we're making fun of MLS at this point for trying to get out of this tournament.
Right. Let me make that clear. I'm making light of the joke that the sports world is right now in trying to push or force these tournaments or these sporting competitions during this time. It's wild, man.
Just getting back underway, does it seem too soon, especially with states reopening, non-essential businesses opening back up, barbershops, tattoo parlors being opened back up, where it feels like we're on this great trajectory to reopen the country, that why wouldn't sports be one of those things that restarts as well? So why wouldn't you start up sports? Why wouldn't you take this gamble? But when you see the teams testing positive and even entire teams having to withdraw from the tournament, it just doesn't seem like it's possible, but you still got to try. Right.
I mean, I feel like you're kind of put in a position to have to try based on like sponsorships and the business side of it, which I know is it's kind of a sad thing to say that's what it is. That if it wasn't for pressure from networks and sponsors and pretty much people that help these franchises make money, that's what you have to do. But on the other end of it, from just like a scientific health standpoint, this is probably a pretty dangerous thing to be doing right now, given, overall, really what it is we have no vaccine. And until we have a vaccine, we really shouldn't really be doing a lot outside of just essential things, which is like food, water, and all the things that you do that help you kind of move on day to day, exercise and whatnot. But I get it. Like at on the other end of it, the business side of it, of course, if you're an owner of a team or you're a player and the way that they structure your contract and that you're supposed to perform, then I guess you have to figure out a way to put it out there and get this thing going. But like you said, Alex, it is unfortunate that we are getting a lot of positive results happening. We already saw FC Dallas have to bow out, which was really unfortunate. We heard that Nashville and Chicago Fire, their game got postponed, which is essentially what happened first with FC Dallas and Vancouver, is that it got postponed first. And then they said that they were out. So who's to say that Nashville won't just be out as well? It's just kind of a bummer. And I don't know how to feel about it. I feel a little conflicted about watching it if things keep going downwards. It kind of makes me wonder if it's still worth it. But like we were joking in the beginning, will they make it past the group stage? We don't know. So yeah.
It gives a whole new meaning to group of death, man.
Yeah.
It's they should call it the MLS needs cash tournament, not the MLS is back.
The MLS bailout tournament.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
And I say that because, like Donald just mentioned, we all know the main reason, the money that is lost from revenues, from broadcast, advertising, obviously that's attached to that. And it just sucks, man. It's embarrassing that these things are still going through, and it almost feels as though they're being forced. Because even though they'll use the excuse as, well, we want to help the country feel like they're returning to normal, right? Because sports are such a big part of our daily lives. It's like bullshit, man. Like we don't need that right now. There's so much of our life that's still normal. I think people are just pretending, or unfortunately, people are in a state where they are uncomfortable, because their daily routines have been taken away from them, that it's made it easy for them to like justify things like, an MLS tournament coming back, or MLB coming back, or NBA having, coming back, when the reality of it is there's plenty of people out there, enough people, I should say, that are still dealing with this like on a pretty heavy level, and to act irresponsibly as a league, right? It's kind of like, that's one thing. But then us as fans, right? Are we enabling it by actually tuning in? Because if we tune in and all the ratings are great, then it kind of justifies why they did it to begin with. You get what I mean? And so what message are we trying to send? Do we care? Do we really care about this? Because that's why, like Donald said, I'm conflicted myself. I honestly, I do not, and I know this is controversial speaking on a sports podcast about this, but I do not care to watch this tournament right now. I'm not even like hyped like that. I think I was initially, when they first announced it, just the initial like, oh, and again, because there was like a false sense of security that I felt like was returning to me at that moment, where I was like, oh shit, it's coming back.
I'll say this. It's pretty therapeutic to see it. It makes you feel good when you see sports back on TV, right? It helps you get that sense of normalcy. And these players know the risks they're taking. And yes, granted, there's a lot of financial incentives for them. They don't have a choice sometimes. They have to go make that money. They don't have the luxury that somebody like Carlos Vela has, where he's able to stay home and take care of his family, which is priority number one. I totally agree with Carlos Vela staying home. He should. But he's in a better financial situation than a lot of these younger MLS players are. And they need to go out there to play in this tournament to make money for their family. And that's why they're assuming this risk. And we as the spectators have that right to not watch. However, there's something as a spectator watching sports that makes you feel better. Like there's a sense of normalcy. So to play devil's advocate here, when somebody works at a supermarket, they're taking on that same risk as somebody who's going to play sports, in the sense where it's not as essential, but it's very important to the individual. But sports is also therapeutic to you, to make you feel like there's a sense of normalcy, like we're going to get out of this craziness that we're going through right now.
Yeah, if you're speaking to mental health, I get it. I get what sports means to that sense, because to use your analogy, it doesn't quite stack up, to be the grocery worker, because we literally cannot live without food. Right. Whereas the other one's more of a mental health issue, right? For sports being therapeutic, because I agree. I mean, it's not even therapeutic. I don't know if it's necessarily therapeutic or if it's just more of a breather, right? Sometimes I know when I'm watching sports or even playing a sport, it's not that it's therapy. I guess it is a form of therapy, but the fact that I get to turn the rest of my mind off, right? Is needed. It's a like fresh break.
It's a coping mechanism for some people to get that breather.
But I think this is where I challenge other fellow spectators, right? Again, I'm a diehard sports fan, but the challenge I feel like is now on me to find a different therapy. Music is my number one therapy. That's why I have a podcast about it, right? Whatever it may be, but there's other vices, right?
Totally.
So what vices can I lean on right now at the moment that we're in that will not call or will not jeopardize the health of others or encourage others to feel like they have to put themselves out there to put on a show just for my piece of like my mind? You know what I mean? Like that's where I feel like, okay, music, I can listen to 100 records right now that have already been made, and they'll bring me a sense of therapy, and nobody has to get hurt for it.
And I'm sure you love going to live music shows.
Yes.
they're not doing that right now, but they are doing live sports without spectators to minimize the risk. So the sports leagues are doing their best to minimize the risk, and they are putting it out there. So why wouldn't you then take them up on that? So like any other business is just trying to make their money. We need the economy to come back. So why wouldn't you support the economy in that sense and watch it?
In this case, though, what economy are we talking about? Watch it.
The league as a whole, the MLS could potentially fold if nobody.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, the economy that this is really benefiting is just the league. It's not like there's stadium workers who are going to benefit from them resuming their play. You know, it's none of those folks that are going to be benefiting from.
But it
this.
trickles down. Wouldn't you say it trickles down? Because then if the MLS doesn't have a team like the Galaxy or LAFC, who's going to work at the Bank of California Stadium? Who's going to work at Dignity Health Sports Park later?
I guess in a way, if you think about it with music, I mean, there's been the Versus series. There's been a lot of artists have been doing what they can. A lot of DJs have been doing everything they can to get on Instagram Live. I used to go to Boombox when it would happen in Chinatown, and they're still doing theirs once a month on IG Live. And I do get it. Like, it is, there is a bit of a livelihood to still want to perform. A part of it is because as an artist, you want to perform, you want to do music. It's who you are. And as much as I want to fault these leagues for just kind of like going out and doing this thing, which is a really big risky move, given that like, especially that NBA and MLS are both doing it in Florida, and then you're hearing all that news coming out of Florida, it just makes it really scary. But I just feel like just listening to what Alex was just saying right now, it kind of does open up the whole discussion of like, how is this different than, you know, the DJs doing their thing or going to a spot where they're all meeting up so that they can do their like, you know, hourly sets and going back to back, and they're being like, you know, together and whatnot. I think it's kind of similar. Like, I think the leagues are trying to do their best to make it as safe as possible. But of course, I think the optics of it, like you said, Sonny, is that like, yeah, the optics do look kind of sketchy because it's not just like a small group of people, like it's literally like teams of people, and they are reserving a hotel,
right?
Like you're filling up like a building full of people, and it is tough. It's like, that's why I said when I first started with my opening rant, I guess it's called, that I don't know what to feel. Like, I really don't know. I want to see these games. Obviously I'm going to see them. Like, I'm going to watch El Tráfico. I'm going to watch the matches that are coming up for LA Galaxy. I'm going to watch the upcoming game for LAFC as well, because a part of me like wants to see, okay, let's see how this goes down. But you know, like, I guess in a way this is kind of like where my faith comes in, and just hope and pray that it doesn't get any worse, and just make sure that whoever's participating in this, like hotel workers and players and everything, and coaches and all the people that are pretty much going to be the ones that are basically like the ones that are going to be like, you know, they're going to be liable for all this, like, hopefully that they just come out of this safe. Yeah. And if it has to be canceled, then it just be canceled. And if that's what happens, that's just what happens, you know? So
I feel like, because I get it. I totally get the, feeling conflicted. I get what you mean, Alex, when you say the league crumbling ultimately could be bad business just moving forward. Obviously, if there is no MLS, then there is no trickle down jobs as a result. There is nothing to come back to. But the difference in this analogy or this comparison that we keep using between, like, for instance, the DJs that are playing at these sets back to back or whatever it may be, team sports, I should say, is completely different. Like, these dudes are breathing hard, breathing heavy. When you compare it to everything we know about this virus, especially, right? Or sports is one of the most reckless things you could do with this virus around us. So just taking that basic principle into account should be enough to be like, yeah, it's not enough for us to do this yet, especially in this country where numbers keep rising. I understand in Europe where the numbers finally started plateauing and then declining, and then they decided to test the waters, and even then you would have one or two, couple positive tests. But so far they've skated by, and it looks like it's okay, but their numbers keep being managed. Whereas here, it's the complete opposite direction. And it's like, why are we in such a hurry to do it right now? Like, why? I'm not saying don't ever bring it back, but first let's prove that we can all collectively bring the numbers down. And then, like, you want sports to come back? Fucking prove it. Wear your mask when you go outside. You know what I mean? Stay socially distant. You can't have best of both worlds right now, is what I'm saying. And that's the reckless part about it, you know, is that we're turning a blind eye. We're pretending like we're acting like we've got this shit on lockdown. And, oh, guys, don't worry, sports are back now. And it's like, it sends the wrong message. And so therefore, from a sports standpoint, fine, like, let's watch the Dodgers inner scrimmage, create a fucking little game out of that where they don't have to travel. You know what I mean? Like, let's watch LAFC and Galaxy, because they're in this. I'll watch 10 Tráficos where they don't have to travel. You know what I mean? Like, and you could do little like 4-on-4, whatever, 7v7 tournaments amongst the two teams, like shit like that. Like, and sorry, I should have asked from the first time you guys invited me out. I was like, is this like kid friendly or?
Well, not anymore.
We're gonna put an E next to this one.
Yeah, get the bleep button ready. Sorry, I should have asked for that.
But I understand your passion, where you're coming from, and is it really safe to do something like this? But I would say, why wouldn't it be if they're taking proper precautions that they're doing by putting them in these bubbles and testing them as much as they're testing them? If you're breathing on somebody who's negative and you're negative, where's the harm in that?
There's no harm at that moment. You are correct. But we don't know what's happening 24/7 when they leave the field and they go back to that hotel and then they go back the next day to another field and meet with somebody else. It's just nonsensical.
But they're contact tracing them at that point. They know who's in this bubble.
They know who's in the bubble, but it's not a perfect system.
It's far from perfect, but it's still good enough to put on this tournament, which is that's all they're planning in this tournament.
I'll juxtapose it to the UFC, which hopefully we'll have time to talk about.
We'll get to after the break.
Yeah, at some point here. The reason why I feel more comfortable watching an event like the UFC, right, is because I feel like that is much more controlled, right? You have one fighter against another fighter at one time. And so that's why I feel more comfortable watching something like UFC. So whereas soccer and or basketball and or football and or baseball, those sports are not what we should be doing right now.
Well, we'll have this discussion again when the NFL starts.
Oh, and yeah, exactly. But anyways, I didn't mean to sidetrack. I mean, I guess it's just
you want ESPN to broadcast another game of horse.
Yeah, sign me up, dude. Cornhole, you know, like, or some shit, you know, like.
Okay, we're gonna take a quick break here. We'll get more into if this tournament does happen, who the Galaxy are playing, who LAFC is playing, and what are the weird sports we've been watching since quarantine started. We'll get into that right after the break. Stick around for this. Thanks for sticking around. You're listening to the West Box Score. I'm Alex Gonzalez, back with Donald Paz and Sonny Hermano. What's up, guys?
Yo, what's going on, man?
Oh, what's good?
All right, so if this MLS is back tournament does in fact happen, the Galaxy's first game will be Monday, March 13th. Also, LAFC will play that day, but the one we're all looking forward to, Saturday, July 18th, El Tráfico. Donald, who else is the Galaxy playing?
July 23rd, they are playing the Houston Dynamo at 5 p.m. And I see LAFC plays the Portland Timbers at 7:30 p.m.
I understand we're all conflicted about watching these games, but the fact is that they are going to be broadcasted. And once they are, I mean, our own need to see soccer or just kind of see the train wreck that is going to be the tournament itself, I think we're all three of us, even with our conflicting emotions, are going to be tuned in, right?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, just for the simple fact of being able to talk shit to you, yes, I would.
See, I told you, COVID won.
Yeah.
Let me be clear, that's the only reason why I would be tuning in.
If we can make it to July 18th, that you know,
that's it.
That would
just hold on to that one.
Yeah, just, you know, hang on till then, guys.
Now, mind you, when I said you, I squarely meant Alex here. Although Donald and Alex are both Galaxy fans.
What did I do?
I don't get nearly as much shit from Donald as I do from Mr.
Because it's
Mr.
fun.
Alex.
Sonny Hermano, I know you can take it too and dish it right back.
Yeah.
That's why it's so much fun, man. Having
That's
you on.
right. That's right.
So that's going to be broadcast on some of those games on ESPN, some of them on FS1, and Tráfico, of course, on ESPN. But ESPN has been trying to keep our attention during this quarantine time by broadcasting some really weird stuff, like a lot of classic games, obviously, is the go-to thing. The Last Dance, Michael Jordan documentary had us all tuning in every Sunday night. But some of the weird stuff, as you mentioned before the break there, is cornhole. And I could not believe how into it I was, man. I had never heard of a cornhole league before this, but apparently it's a thing, right?
Can I make a confession?
Please.
After watching it, I went and ordered a set of cornhole boards and beanbags, Seattle Mariner themed beanbags.
Yes.
And I've been practicing my flick, man.
It's kind of one of those things you think you just have like at a tailgate, and that's about it, right? And there's a whole league built off this thing, man. It's crazy.
It's so misrepresented, man. Because exactly. It's been known in America as a tailgate tradition, but
Mark this day. Episode 5 of West Box Score, Sonny Hermano started his amateur career of cornhole and then went on to be a Hall of Fame cornhole player.
I'm the first Latino ever in the cornhole Hall of Fame. That's for sure. Because I'm gonna start the Latinos Association of cornhole players
right here.
Yeah, because it's
representation matters, man.
That's right, man. Hell yeah.
Donna, what's the craziest sport you've been watching on ESPN?
I did see cornhole a while back though. This is before quarantine, and that's because it was like on a.
He goes before the quarantine.
That was
days.
It was a Sunday. I don't think it was a weekend, and it was at Black Angus, and it was one of those days where like there's nothing going on, so somehow they were airing this. I mean, I kind of do like watching the bowling when they play the pro bowling guys, because you realize like, man, these guys are serious. I mean, a lot of these things we play, but we don't realize like there's like a sport and a league behind it, like the poker stuff and
billiards, billiards,
pool. And then, and when you see like these pros do it, man, the billiards one is trippy to me because it always feels like whoever goes first pretty much wins it, because like you're not giving the other guy a shot to like even take his turn, and it's like, whoa, this is like unfair. Like if you know what I mean, I wish I could do that, but no, man. A lot of different things I've seen. But I'm trying to remember, especially towards the beginning of COVID when they started shutting things down, when you knew Fox Sports and ESPN had to switch programming. And Fox Sports, I get what they were doing in the beginning is they were doing a bunch of reruns of college basketball, then they went to college football, then they burned through all their college football games, and then they played a couple like old school, like MLS games, I believe the ones that they had rights to, and then they started playing a lot of WWE stuff. And I guess because at that time it was like SmackDown had just came into Fox, so they were kind of milking the WWE content, and then ESPN was just like on Sports Center 24/7.
Hey, can I quickly say that speaking of WWE, I've been taking full opportunity of their subscription and going back all the way to like 1997, 1990, the Attitude Era,
man. That's where it's at.
And dude, it's like a never-ending telenovela, dude. It's amazing, like, to go back and watch.
Yeah,
I'm totally in that state of mind right now. It's wild.
I still need to watch the Undertaker documentary. I haven't seen it. My cousin saw it. He said it's really good.
The funny thing is that's what prompted me. I signed on to my nephew's account and to go and watch that, and it was like, yo, before I watch this though, I feel like there's some seasons or some years that I get caught up on. And so I went back into the archives and I went down the rabbit hole.
Their search function is really good, dude.
It's amazing.
I would search like Ken Shamrock and it would literally pull up like anything that he was on. And it was like, oh shoot. And it's like old, like a random Raw episode. It would just pull up and then you'd be like, oh shoot, I could watch it. And it's like, you watch it.
Yeah, dude.
You're not going on YouTube and trying to figure out who has it or if it's,
It's amazing. It's been amazing, dude.
They did a good job with that.
Awesome. I love that you're watching WWE Network instead of some documentary on Netflix or Hulu. You should be watching WWE Network. Time
Again,
well spent.
Therapy, man. I read enough books that it's just like I need to veg out now. I need my novella.
Yeah.
I need to know what's going on with The Rock and Vince McMahon.
That is pro wrestling. That's why it's so great. Well, to this day, as a 37-year-old man, I could say with zero shame, I keep up with my pro wrestling because it is the never-ending telenovela, and I have to see what happens in WWE, in AEW, in New Japan Pro Wrestling. I need it all. I love all those novelas. I keep up with all of them, man.
Yeah.
You love your wrestling.
Shout out to AEW, man. I love their YouTube channel. They really do a good job of giving you the great highlights. I feel like that's the easy, I've been able to keep up with AEW just based off the YouTube, and because it's only like one show per week, it makes it easy, and the roster is really small. And I saw that they have the dark episode, which is the Tuesday night, which is literally like an hour and a half. So if you really want to go in on a full on thing, they have that. But yeah, that was really cool. Like I was like, oh shoot. And given that they're like the new company, I'm like, wow. But going back to we were talking about earlier, they're like the only ones that are keep going. They haven't stopped since. Hey, but if anything, we should be hating them even more for not even taking any precautions.
Yeah. Exactly. Since who knows when the WBS podcast will ever talk about WWF again or WWE, just so I know for the record.
We were hoping that hopefully if everything is back to normal, WrestleMania was going to take place next year here in LA. It would have been cool to have some sort of coverage.
Right. But my question is, okay, GOAT, greatest wrestler of all time, go.
My favorite's always been Stone Cold.
Okay.
I was always sold on him and everything. And it's crazy to see that he's back now and he's doing shows. I never thought he'd be that kind of guy that would build the rattlesnake, have a good personality after the fact. Because I was so sold on that character that I was like, oh man, he's just not the guy that you would ever want to mess with. And now he has a beard.
That's why you're always flipping us off, Donald.
So yeah, no, man.
You're always throwing up those birds to us. And we're like, where do you get that from, dude?
I think it's also because it's he's kind of doing a lot of stuff I wouldn't do in real life, and I kind of think he's kind of like my spirit animal right there,
So
what about
I got
you, Alex?
two answers for this GOAT. There's two answers.
Okay.
For pro wrestling, it's Ric Flair. Because Ric Flair is the original styling, profiling, limousine riding, jet flying, kiss stealing, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. But when it comes to sports entertainment, that's the newer era. And I got to go with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I mean, Stone Cold, yes, he took it into a whole new stratosphere of mainstream, but Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson kept him there and proceeded to go off into his own stratosphere. So he, took out for sports entertainment. He's just like an entertainer.
Shout out The Rock.
Shout out to Dwayne. Okay, so I'd say The Rock and Stone Cold are in my top 4.
Ooh, the Mount Rushmore here of GOATs.
Let's not Mount Rushmore. Let's not call him Mount Rushmore. That's problematic. Let's not go.
It's only if you allow it to be, man.
It's not Mount Rushmore. So, although I'd say the GOAT, if we're talking about athletic ability, right?
Ooh, here we go. I love the criteria.
If we're talking about performance, right? Performance element. We're talking about representing the attitude, taking the sport to the next level, right? That transition from when the old guys were still around, Macho Man, Hulk Hogan, no disrespect to those guys, to the new attitude.
I think I know where you're going.
There was one guy that bridged that era, and it was HBK, man. I mean, just with DX alone, he made wrestling cool for minority kids. Yeah, and that's why, to me, again, athletic ability, even to the days of the Rockers, him and Marty Jannetty, I had, if you look back then, at least in the WWF, there weren't high flyers like that. Yeah.
Right.
Or you could tell, those dudes just go at a different speed than all these other dudes. Yeah. And then he just kind of fine-tuned it. Later in his career, obviously, he became more performance and less athletic. I think that was because of the injury.
Well, he could still do it though, even with the Undertaker match at WrestleMania 25.
And he's got one of the coolest finishing moves, if you ask me, man. Sweet chin music. That's I mean, the rock bottom and the people's elbow is right there with it. But Sweet Chin music, man. Like, I mean, any finishing move that has music in it already, is going to win my heart over. So,
No, it's
but
true, actually,
but anyways.
HBK was the dude that got me hooked on it. My cousin was a big Bret Hart fan, and I remember the Bret Hart HBK beef. And I don't know, but HBK was just like, dude, I like this guy. He's just so cool, And that's kind of when I started watching. And I know that Bret Hart was kind of like a big part of that too, even though the whole Montreal thing happened, and But
HBK, like The Rock, one of the only few wrestlers that I can think of from what I remember. I stopped watching it in about 2002, but up until that point, one of the only few wrestlers, and Macho Man maybe, that could pull off babyface and heel just as like good as the other. Like if they were a babyface, you thought they were cool. If they were a heel, you still thought they were cool. Like it was crazy. Same thing with The Rock. Like I said, Macho Man also. Other people, it's like they're only good at being one. Bret Hart's one of those, like, he sucked as a heel. He was only terrible. Good as a baby face. Yeah. So anyways, thanks for indulging me on this.
I completely,
since my mind is right there right now.
We have to have an entire WWE retrospective episode. That's coming up soon once the MLS's back tournament gets canceled. Going from telenovela sports to real sports, UFC 251 is happening at Fight Island in Abu Dhabi. So that's really, really exciting because we're all UFC fans here. And the last minute change, Kamaru Usman, the champion, taking on new challenger. Oh, come on. Dude. He's so good. He's such a good fighter, man. I don't know, man. He
is a good fighter.
Jorge Gamebred Masvidal.
Yes, my boy.
BMF. What does that mean, Sonny Hermano?
That's baddest motherfucker.
Love it, man. He's the champ.
That's right.
So, champ versus champ here, essentially, in this main event. But the whole card is stacked with Alexander Volkanovski taking on Max Holloway, who Alexander Volkanovski, now the champ, facing the former champ, Max Holloway, for the featherweight title.
Such a great card.
Dude, Peter Yan versus Jose Aldo for the vacated bantamweight title.
Yep.
Dude, that's going to be a scrap. Then you got, I don't know, this. I meant to research this. The first two fights on this main card, women's fights. I don't think that's ever happened in Abu Dhabi.
Oh, it's a good point. I'm not sure that it has.
That's going to be historical.
That is historical. You're right. And that part of that region of the world, man, that is huge.
Not just one, two women's fights. On the main card, it's Amanda Ribas versus Paige Van Zandt and Jessica Andrade versus Thug Rose Namajunas 2. Remember, I don't know if you saw that first fight between the two when Thug Rose was champ, and she lost the title to Jessica Andrade. Thug Rose got dropped on her head in that fight, and that was the scariest thing I have seen in the UFC octagon since. The Valentina Shevchenko versus Jessica I head kick. I mean, and then, of course, the Masvidal knee to Ben Askren looked like he killed him, too. I mean, there's been some rough knockouts the last couple of years in UFC, and they've been worth their money when you spend that money for the pay-per-view. So I'll ask both of you guys this. $65 price tag on UFC Plus. Are you willing to pay that to watch this card? Sonny?
For this card, yes. Take my money. First of all, shout out to Masvidal for stepping up, saving UFC's ass. And he really has nothing to lose here, if you think about it. I mean, he got a new contract out of it, right? Which he deserved. And if he were to lose, right? It's like, well, he went in on 6 days notice. Whereas on the other hand, if Usman loses, it's like, yo, you couldn't beat somebody who just stepped up with 6 days. I mean, obviously Masvidal has been training, I'm sure, obviously, or else he wouldn't have taken this.
He's 20 pounds. He has 20 pounds to cut.
To cut, yeah. But still, I'm sure he's been training, I mean, as best as he could, knowing that maybe it was a possibility at some point. But still, all the pressure's on Usman. So I will tip my hat to him if he does pull it off, because of the pressure alone. Mm-hmm. But I don't see. Man, I'm rooting so hard for Masvidal, dude.
I don't see Masvidal winning this. I just don't.
This sounds like a bet to me. Sounds like a bet to me.
Yeah, we're gonna have to make it interesting here. an entire 2 liter of Mr. Pibb. really high stakes.
There you go.
No, but in all honesty, Usman's been training, ready, but yes, his strategy is going to be completely different. But his endurance. So look at him what he did to Kobe in those 5 rounds. He
looked good
him
against Kobe. He looked good against Covington for sure.
And Kobe's the one who had all the energy, like all that stamina going in, but he completely outfought him. So
yeah, but Masvidal has so much hate for this dude that I just don't think you can measure. You can't account.
Who doesn't
for that,
he have
dude.
hate for though? He has that chip on his shoulder.
No,
he can turn on a dime to hate on anybody.
No, he paid respect to Nate. Like you could tell when they fought, he didn't hate Nate. It was just strictly professional when he fought
Correct.
Nate. And yet he still took care of business. So that just speaks to, and Nate Diaz is arguably probably my favorite MMA fighter. But even then, it was like props to Masvidal for just being professional, taking care of business and moving along, Although I'd love to see them run it back because I felt like that one maybe got cut short a little too soon, even though Masvidal was dominating that fight. But anyways, Masvidal has definitely earned this shot, and to take it on 6 days notice, when it really should be, I'm sure it's a dream come true for the dude to finally get a title shot in the UFC after 18 years is it 18 or 13? No, I think it's 18 years.
Second longest ever without getting a title shot for most fights without getting a title shot.
Right.
Right behind Overeem.
Yeah. And for him to be here, even through this backward ass way, dude, I can't wait. That just for that alone, I would pay the $65. Now, when you finish reading off that card, forget it. Holloway, Jose Aldo, it's come on, man.
That's a no-brainer. You gotta spend that money out for this card. Donald, what do you think about this card overall, top to bottom here? All these fights, is it worth the $65 and your conscience, knowing that these fighters are potentially risking the Rona?
Already made that case.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I think that they've already done it once. So it's not like it'll be foreign to them. They already kind of know what protocols they want to follow or what they have to follow. And also, this is going to be the first one at Fight Island. I mean, who knows what this is going to look like? You know what I mean? It just feels like they finally have like a venue of their own where they don't have to feel weird about it. And this is kind of what they've been wanting for a while, So it's, I think it's definitely worth the $65 to say, hey, you know what? I remember watching the first UFC on Fight Island like years from now. So yeah, and the card is pretty interesting. It's really good. The short notice was again, Masvidal came through, like you guys said. I mean, you guys said a lot that pretty much covered a lot of this stuff, but yeah, it was really good.
When Donald said weird, the only thing that came to mind was like, okay, it's in Abu Dhabi. What is the time difference? And what does that mean? Because last I was told, this fight main event was taking place at 7 p.m. Pacific time, which if we're looking at an 11 hour difference, right?
Yeah.
That means this fight in real time is happening at 6 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yo, like, does anybody else find that weird?
Because I want to say, wasn't there a recent boxing match that happened that was like, you could tell like,
oh yeah, Andy Ruiz
one, right? Where it was like, I think they were there at like 2 in the morning or 3 in the morning, something like that, when they went on. So they had to stay up all
even
night.
That's different. There's something about like fighting when the sun goes down versus when the sun's coming up.
Fighting for breakfast?
I would think psychologically, you know what I'm saying? Like, isn't that weird? I know Khabib fought. Was it in Abu Dhabi or where
yeah, it was, but this one was in an arena and it was, climate control.
Exactly.
Still, they were complaining about how hot it was, though. Yeah. I remember that.
And I know that fight was early as well.
That fight was an early afternoon fight. That
correct.
one was.
It wasn't 6 in the morning, like early.
But I think the reason they're doing it at 6 in the morning is because it's going to be outdoors from the octagon. It looks like the octagon is going to be set up on the beach, like an actual, like it's going to look like a fight island,
like an island,
which is awesome, right?
Yo, I don't know about y'all, but when you wake up, even if you wake up at 4 in the morning, are you ready to just jump into a ring with somebody?
I know, right?
And get
depends what kind. Maybe if I was dreaming about LAFC and that playoff game, maybe I am ready to fight when I wake up in the morning. So.
That's the other part to this Masvidal equation that's wild. It's like, okay, wait a minute. You have 6 days that you just took this fight, and now you also have to adjust for a whole sleep cycle.
You
know what I mean? Like, if you go in Masvidal and take care of business, fuck, like, dude, it's amazing. It's amazing.
I think the reason they're going to also fight at 6 a.m. is because it's going to be so freaking hot that day. That Saturday, the forecast 104 degrees, the high. Yeah. But at 6 a.m., it's going to be a nice brisk 92 degrees. 92 degrees at 6 a.m.
Is the main event is happening at 6 a.m.? Does that mean that the undercard's happening earlier than that? That means that so then the other guys have to be up. Then they might as well just stay up all night, which is gonna pull an overnight.
That's the weird part that I'm intrigued by.
Yeah.
And that I wonder how much one has to account for.
What's the over-under that they'll blame the sleep schedule as to why they didn't win?
Shit, I would if I lost. I'd be like,
but don't
tough.
You think
my team, we didn't, we already had to deal with the Rona, and now
I didn't sleep enough.
You got to deal with the Rona and the Sandman making me sleepy.
Yeah, dude, I totally get to your point, Alex. I get why they're doing it early from a temperature. Yeah, standpoint, but psychologically, right? It's like, damn, like how do you wake up ready to go? Like it's like, do you wake up like it's Christmas morning? Oh shit, I've been waiting for this. Like you psych yourself into that, or
no, that's true.
Well, I think with the sleep, that's why they're there now, so that way they can prepare for Saturday's fights, because you have to get used to a sleep schedule of waking up early to fight. Henry Cejudo was on the Rogan Experience, and he gave a great insight to his training that for his training they have pulled out walkout music when they have their sparring sessions, so they could fully replicate the actual fight night. They even have it in the evening with the walkout music, the cornermans and everything, to fully replicate what fight night would be like. So if you're doing that in Abu Dhabi, I would imagine you'd have to wake up at 6 a.m. maybe and start your sparring session to fully replicate fight morning. Essentially is what they're going to be doing. But it's going to be 92 degrees at 6 a.m. when the main card starts, with a humidity of 50%.
Dang, dude. I don't know, man.
Those are some tough fight conditions. That's going to be tough for the grapplers. That's actually going to be in Masvidal's favor in that main card, because if Masvidal's wet, it's going to be tough for Usman to get submissions on him now. He's going to slip right out.
It's crazy, man. I don't know what to expect. Is it ideal? Of course not. But that's the great part about the UFC and these fight games. When they do have these last second, fighter dropped out, somebody swooped in. It's like, man. And then that fighter sometimes... like it happened to Conor and Nate, right?
Usually more exciting and more. It's almost like a bigger name. Usually, most of the time. Sometimes Dana White is actually really good about giving us a good name to fill in, or sometimes if it's not, it's somebody who's going to put on a good fight.
Well, I'm sure he was grinding his teeth, putting his tail between his legs, going to Masvidal and being like, "All right, how much you want?" You know what I mean? Like, because they were playing hardball there for a minute, and Masvidal saved them, man, and I can't wait. I can't wait to see it.
Neither can I. One thing's for sure, we will be watching, and thanks to you for listening to the West Box Score. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially with everything going on, and to listen to us and laugh with us and laugh at us sometimes at the stuff we're saying. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. Thank you so much for downloading and listening. Join us next week. We'll have more on hopefully recapping MLS is Back tournament, and maybe recapping this UFC event, because one thing's for sure, we will be watching it. We'll be dissecting it somewhat. So for Sonny Hermano, Donald Paz, I'm Alex Gonzalez. Thanks for listening. Late.
Adios.
Later.